What's up, everybody? Palangi Studio of Rock here, only on Radio Wigwam. Today we got keyboard extraordinaire and a legendary band here. I've checked these guys out. They go back to the early '60s. John, what's going on, man? We got Jon Povey in the building.
I'm very happy to be here.
How's it
Um,
going? Where you are right
it's
now? Where you at?
I live in Spain. I live in southern Spain. I've lived here for about 15 or 16 years now. So I don't speak Spanish, unfortunately. It's
Oh, okay.
goes in one ear and comes out the other, I'm afraid. So there you go.
I don't blame you. I kind of understand French a little bit, but Spanish, I'm lost.
Oh,
Just too
okay.
fast. Too
Yeah,
fast.
really. You're right there.
So you've been in a band, the Pretty Things. I hear. I'm like I'm talking to like the guy from Rolling Stones here. Your band was chart topping. The debut or the big album there was Parachute that you're talking about. You
Yeah,
actually redoing that now? Is that what you're doing?
redone that. That's redone and
Okay.
is out. That's on Renaissance Record, which is an American company based in Phoenix, I think. So
Okay.
they've got it out, and we've remade it with the four of the guys who were on it. The only person who wasn't on it, who was on the original, was Phil, and Phil declined at the time, and unfortunately, since that time, he's now passed away. So
Yeah, I read
um,
that.
yeah,
You have a new singer? Somebody singing?
no, we're not. I think it all ended with that. Really, I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
it was the creativity was very important in the '60s. Well, it still is all the way through, but it was very important to bands of that era to come up with different things. And Phil was the great sort of instigator of all those ideas, really.
Yeah, the
So
mastermind.
yeah, so that's where it went. And unfortunately, we did a nice concert at the O2 in London uh, in 3 years ago now, but we did that as a final with David Gilmour from the Floyd, and Van Morrison came
Yep.
and did a couple of numbers as well. So it was a fitting end to many decades of great music and times and adventures and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure you have so many stories that it's we could be here for 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, really, easily.
I do want to
Easily.
bring up. I read according to Wikipedia that you guys were banned from New Zealand for some reason when you started out. Is that true?
No, that's wrong. I mean, it's kind
Okay.
of a mixed up metaphors, really, because we went to New Zealand in the '60s and caused mayhem,
Okay.
and so much so that we were banned from ever playing in Australia as well at the same time. And
Oh wow.
the bass player, one of the original guys in the bass player, John Stax, went to live in Australia. So that's probably where
Okay.
that's come from, I expect.
Okay. Who have you guys opened up for? Just throw some names out there.
Um, well, we've played with so many, really. I mean, we played with the Pink Floyd quite a few times. Um, Small Faces, Van Morrison, um, some of the American bands as well. Let's think. Not Spring. We were quite close with Bruce Springsteen's guitar player. We did some stuff with him in New York,
Okay.
round the corner from where you are, I expect, um, in a village somewhere. And we did the Kinks tour. We did ELO.
Yeah.
We've done lots of things like that all over the place. We toured America in the '70s twice when we were signed with Led Zeppelin. We were signed on the Swan Song label with Jimmy and Robert,
I read
and
that. I read that.
we were due to play a big concert with them with Joe Walsh. And unfortunately, what happened was that Robert was in Greece and had a car crash,
Oh
and that
yeah.
killed that gig. I think it would have made a big difference to the Pretty Things in America had we
Yeah.
played that one because it was 100,000, 120,000 seater. We
Yeah.
played at the Isle of Wight Festival in 1970 with The Who, Jimi Hendrix, Bob Dylan, and all that, and there was 150,000 people at that gig.
Wow.
So, well,
What's
yeah,
what's that like being on stage? They say you can feel the wave, like if they
weird.
yell,
It,
you can feel it.
Well, we played at 3 o'clock in the afternoon,
Okay.
and it was a beautiful day. But it was very strange to walk out on stage and just see that sea of faces going as back as far as you could.
Yeah.
And then when you finish the song, you get the first sort of 100 people, 100 rows, if you like, clapping, and then it would go back and back and back and back and back and back and back.
Wow, so it's almost like an echo effect on stage.
It was
I never
really
thought
strange.
of that. Where it's
It's very strange to reach, and it was in the days before kind of pyrotechnics and lots of sort of video effects and all that sort of stuff.
Well, focus was on the music. Yeah, not all.
It was about what you were playing,
stuff.
really. You know.
Yeah.
Do you play yourself? Are you a player?
I do. Yeah, I've been a rock artist for since before 2010. So I've been releasing music since then.
You look too young, and there's no lines on your face. What's going?
I live a very clean life, as I tell everybody. No drama, no stress.
Oh,
all
you
music.
look like that. Actually, you look very kind of unstressed guy. You know, very laid back. It's cool.
Yeah, I'm actually in my early 30s now, and people can't believe it. They're
that
like,
old?
What the hell?
My God, you're almost finished. You're almost finished.
No way, man. I'm just starting.
Good lad. Good.
Especially since COVID, you know, it's 3 years of absolutely like nothing.
I know, it's really been weird.
I feel like weird. Everything's just restarting for me. I teach guitar lessons, and we got the studio back up and certain things, so it's almost like restarting all over again. It's so weird, you know, at the same time.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've been working on a solo album and a book for the last couple of years, and I managed to do some recording before COVID started in the UK.
Yeah.
And then I took the songs back to here, and I work on a computer like a lot of people do with Pro Tools.
Yeah.
And then kind of got into a mixing stage now, so I'm hoping to get that out this year as well, Pat. Who knows? Little plug for me there, but I don't know. It depends on a lot of factors. You know, the music business is not what it was 20 years ago. I mean, it's just changed out of all recognition, really. It's very difficult to get something away. But I mean, I'm sure that I'm very confident that it'll happen. But you know, it's not an easy ride, and I feel for young guys like you who have the talent, who have the ideas. But in our day, if you had ideas and you were halfway looking cool, then you could get away. I mean, you could get on a tour.
Yeah.
You could get on the TV.
You send your song to the radio, and they'd pick it up, and all of a sudden, you know, there'd be 10 radio stations playing it, or there's like this effect. Nowadays, it's not anything like that.
No, I know. It's very difficult.
You can't get played on FM at all. I barely can get on a local show. It's so, I don't know, and I blame it on the industry. You know, it's changed so much, and I think they just kind of let it go in a direction that's, I don't know. You know, there's no CDs anymore and that kind of stuff. It's tough.
Yeah, it's very strange. I mean, I suppose it's economically driven, but I mean, it's not easy if you've got a lot of talent and you're crying out for those ideas to be heard by somebody else apart from your next door neighbor. Yeah. You know, you haven't got a chance really at the moment. Yeah. And I think that's really, you know, it's kind of a suppression on creativity. Really, it's a shame. It really is a shame, because I'm sure there must be some really good players out there, very good singers out there who never get a chance to actually get it out. You know, it's.
I hear it from these,
I'm very sorry.
submissions.
I wish it was different for you. I really do.
Well, someday. I think someday it will change if we can get back a physical product again, too, something to sell, something that people can look at and it's in their hands, and you know, I don't know, but I think, you know, like back with the albums, you look at the albums, you look at the pictures, you didn't know a lot of the bands, so you had more creativity of like, I think this band probably does this, or you know, a lot of things go through your mind. And like, I'm a big fan of Metallica, so I was always like, I don't know what they were like. See, now you could watch 80 million videos and know exactly what they're like.
Sure.
But growing up, I was just like that. I was just going off the vibe and the energy and the pictures on the album and live DVDs because that's all we had. We
Sure.
didn't have YouTube was like very the very start of everything.
Sure.
But
But I think it's sort of taken it. I mean, in if you just got the album, in our day, the album, getting the vinyl, saving up the money for it, and then going down the shops before we started playing, really,
yeah,
was it was so inspiring because it was all in the imagination. And when you put the record on the player, you could just close your eyes. There was no headphones or anything like that, really.
oh,
So I
okay,
mean, there's nothing like that to really enhance those moments. But when you played it and you could, use your imagination, it's like reading a book.
hmm
When you sit there and read a book, you're concentrating on the book, and you've got all the characters and the faces and the adventures all in your head.
yeah,
Unfortunately, all that's taken away because, like you say, there's 85 million videos, and it
yeah,
just takes any kind of imagination away from it, really.
yep.
And I
Yeah.
think that really puts the lid on a lot of creativity for a lot of young people too. Really, unfortunately.
It's different pressure. It's weird because it's like oh yeah, release a song and they could say like, oh yeah, got 100,000 streams. They're like, okay, well, what's next? It's just
Yeah,
it's
really.
I don't know. They don't value what's out. You know, I
Well,
don't.
I think people don't really get it. I mean, a lot of I'm on Facebook, obviously. So, I mean, I like you, and I get a lot of people say, well, what was it like? And all that. So, well, it wasn't like anything really. I mean, it was just, you just had an idea and you could throw that idea out into the street and then somebody would pick it up
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it would snowball from then, or
yep.
you would go down to, I mean, I'm going way back now, and in the very very old days when we all started, to there was a place called the Railway Hotel in a place called Dartford in Kent, which was by the station at Dartford. Nothing
Okay.
very spectacular. But there was a little room at the back of the Railway Hotel, which was a pub, and
Yeah.
so all the wannabes and all the guys who wanted to be in a band would go there on a Friday night, pay, I don't know, 1 shilling in those days, which was, I don't know, half a cent or something, nothing,
Yeah, yeah,
and would
real
stand
cheap.
there and watch like five bands play for
Yeah.
about 4 hours.
Wow.
And that's how you cut your teeth. And that's how you kind of learnt your craft.
Yep.
You were watching
Paying
these
your dues, I
people.
think we call it over here too. You got to pay your
Yeah.
dues.
But it was
Yep.
exciting because, you could share it, and there was nobody sort of, there was no sort of guy smoking a cigar waiting around the corner to grab you,
Yeah.
and exploit you. It
Yeah.
wasn't like that. It was
Yeah.
very innocent.
Yeah.
And there's so much great music came out of that, which inspires guys like you today to carry on, because it must be the 60s, must be the most important time
I
for
do
creativity.
because I'm actually I was taking I'm going for my rock certification on guitar in Berkeley in Massachusetts and New
Well,
York
good
here.
luck for that.
It's tough. It's tough. It's a lot of hours, but I was gonna say all the music that we're learning is all from your era in the '70s, and it's all not that anything past the '80s isn't worthy of
No,
learning,
no, of course not.
but it's a foundation of classic rock. That's when it started, and
I
that's
just think it's more real. I mean, it's just more real. And even
techniques,
people
everything.
30 years later still can pick up the realness of it. They
Yes.
understand the kind of, that reality of it, rather than, I think, as it got on a bit, as the, we had a couple of very good albums, SF Sorrow and Parachute,
Yeah, I was gonna
within two
mention
years.
sorrow with the
Yeah,
story element. When you say it's a story,
yeah,
you actually told part of stories on
that's it.
stage.
That's it. I
Yeah.
mean, within 2 years, the 68, 1968 and 70. And then what happened was the over, because there was more money, and bands would be able to do or spend more time in the studio, they got rather overindulgent. And so you would go into the 70s, and towards the end of the 70s,
Yeah.
you get these long sort of diatribes of of music going on for hours and hours and hours. And of course,
And the
people got extremely bored with that, really.
yeah, and the people around drugs and all that kind of stuff too. So it
Drugs?
was.
What's that?
We
You
don't
mean
remember those.
aspirin and things like that?
As
Yeah,
I've
no.
heard. I do want to bring up, so most of your stuff
Please
was
do.
recorded in the legendary Abbey Road studio, which I've
Yeah,
heard
yeah,
all about. And I'm a gearhead here. So what was it
yeah, of
like
course.
recording there?
Well, once again, it was sort of like when you were touring, you would always run into bands 4 o'clock in the morning somewhere on a motorway, on a
Yeah.
freeway somewhere, and you would run into the Stones, or you would run into all these other bands around the Kinks or whatever, run into all those bands and doing the same thing in Abbey Road. First of all, the important thing to say is that the the record company, which was EMI at the time, which is now defunct,
Yeah, I remember
um,
them.
they would have people like Norman Smith for the Pretty Things. They would have George Martin for the Beatles, Norman Smith for Pink Floyd. And these guys were 10 years, 12, 15 years older than us. And they
Oh,
had a
okay.
jazz, they had a jazz background. So they were very good with music.
Okay.
They understood chords, they understood progressions, they understood all
So
that
there were
sort of stuff.
studio guys that were
Yeah, but they realised very early on that what was going on with the younger guys, and the younger guys who were coming in, like the Beatles, like a lot of Liverpool bands at the time, and the Floyd and people like that were quite good. I mean, quite creative, but only limited in the terms of the way they could put chords together or make progressions together or changes in a song.
yeah.
So when you
Yep.
went into when you went into Abbey Road, first of all, it was like walking into a sweet shop where you've got all these wonderful
Yeah.
things to eat and drink because they
Oh,
had
okay.
all the Hammonds and Bosendorfer Steinway pianos and harpsichords, and the whole place was full up with all this stuff. And you go, "Oh my God, look at this!" And play a little
This sounds
and do that.
perfect.
And this sounds great.
Yeah.
But then you had these guys like George Martin and Norman who would steer you very, very cleverly to make it think that a lot of it was your idea.
Oh, okay.
They wouldn't sort of say, "Oh no, you got to do that," or "No, you can't do this." They would say, "Yeah, I like that. How about trying to go to A minor or D minor 7 or something like that? What's the D minor 7? Well, it's this. Oh, okay, right." So
Yeah, okay.
we were on a great learning curve. It was going back to school for us.
That's what producers should do. It shouldn't just
Absolutely.
be, oh,
And
I'm
it
gonna
was
mix
like,
the music and here you go. See you later.
it was really good. I mean, it was lovely to be in that creative bubble.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we were working at the time when we did Parachute. We were doing an SSR. We were doing the Beatles were there. Pink Floyd was in another studio, and of course, you've got George. I'm not name dropping. I hate that, but I've got George and Ringo coming in to listen to what we're doing. We weren't allowed to go into Studio One where McCartney and Lennon were doing their sort of thing. We
Yeah.
weren't allowed to do that, but we were allowed to. We were allowed to let people into us. So that
Yeah.
was cool.
Yeah. That's neat.
We use Ringo's snare. Don't tell Ringo whatever you do if you interview him, but we use Ringo's snare drum on a track because a lot of their stuff was in a cupboard in our studio and they didn't know. We saw Ringo's. We couldn't understand how Ringo got how they got an amazing drum kit sound.
Okay. Yeah, that sound. Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
we opened the door of this little room and there was his kit, his Ludwig kit, and it was twice the size of any Ludwig kit I've ever
Ah,
seen.
okay, okay.
So that's how they did it.
It's
They
got a
had a
bigger
huge
boom.
bass drum. Oh, it was,
Yeah.
at least a third bigger
Wow.
than a normal kit. So we said, right, lads, the secret's out. But we never told anybody. I'm only telling
Grab the
you because
snare.
it was like 700 years later.
Yeah, I'll have
Yeah, so there
to.
you go.
If I ever do a Ringo request, I'll be like, now this guy said they used the snare.
Yeah, you never knew, Ringo.
Yeah,
No,
in the
it
same
was a great
studio.
place to work. It was very, very creative. In those days, of course, we had lots of time because studio time wasn't expensive. And although I think we spent 6 months doing SF Sorrow,
I could just
and in these
imagine the
days,
bill for that.
unheard of.
Yeah.
These days, you've got to go in there within a couple of weeks and get it all down. Otherwise, you're in serious
Hours,
trouble.
days. I did 3 songs within a week. Realistically, now I'd probably have to do 5 songs within a week or something like that. One a
Yeah,
day, pretty much.
it's a shame because we would, going back to that, we would take we purposely, once we understood where we were and what it could do for us, we purposely then only had a very rough, basic idea of a song. We wouldn't come in with a
Okay.
finished song.
So it
We
would
come in
be,
with
it
the band will
becomes,
get together. Yeah,
yeah. Where it's now, it's very much of, you got to have the structure. Everything's there. You're just there to record the idea,
yeah.
pretty much,
Well, I think that's
which
the
is,
difference. To be honest with you, looking at it still, the difference between then and now is that you had time
yeah.
and you didn't
Yep.
have to worry about so you could create the song in the studio and then put it down straight away. And I think they sound like that as well. The songs sound as though it's a
Yeah.
band playing it rather than a load of guys playing different instruments.
Yep.
That's the difference for me.
Yep. And the parts aren't so fine tuned that they're professional after 30 years of playing the song. It's,
Yeah,
we've only played this maybe twice, and you
exactly.
can hear the raw talent come out. And
Yeah,
yeah,
quite so. It had that sort of, like you say, it has that air of newness about it for you as
yeah,
well,
it's
for
fresh.
all of you. So
I try to
yeah,
do that in what I'm doing in the digital world. I try not to, like, say, rehearse the song 20 times or something like that, and then finally lay down a guitar part. It's pretty much, maybe once, 2 times or something like that, and then finally do the actual thing. You know what I mean?
I think you have to leave it. I think it's nice to have that ability to be able to let it kind of evolve a little bit, but evolve with all of you.
Yeah. Yep. And I on the show too, I like to talk about the audio stuff. And when I have people over, I always tell them too, don't be stuck on that chord. Just because it's, like you said, D minor, whatever it is, something else might be really cool in the place of it, and don't kind of pigeonhole yourself in something that could hurt your idea. Just try it, go with it, see where it goes, evolve with it.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
find there's two for me. I'm not being critical because we live in different worlds, and we've gone. Some of us have gone through much more of the world, and some of us are just starting out. But I
Yeah.
find that with a lot of stuff that it's kind of, people send me stuff. Would I tell them what I think? And I'm a kind guy. I'm not a horrible bloke. So I try and be constructive
Yeah.
and say, well, look, the dynamic's gone. Where's I can't really hear the lyrics. So what's the point? You kind of get caught in the technology rather. I mean, the technology is amazing. I mean,
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
we recorded Parachute Revisited, this album that we've got out now, and that was all done on Pro Tools and mixed on Pro Tools. It's amazing. I mean, you've got the world at your fingertips. You can sit down there with a MIDI keyboard and you've
Yeah.
got the world, and it's
Yeah. Yep.
instant and it's
Yep.
fantastic. But you can get reliant on that too much. You become reliant on the technique. The technology begins to overshadow
Too many options.
the tune, the
Yeah.
tune itself.
Yeah.
And to me, in our day, we were always told by all the managers, whoever manages, I mean, make sure it's a strong song. If it's a strong song, everything else is easy.
Yeah.
If it's a
Yeah.
kind of rough idea, it doesn't sound that great, but you want to make it sound great with all the technology. It won't last.
Yeah. Yep. Comes out sterile. Like, I know what you're
There you
talking
go.
about. Yep.
There you go.
So I was gonna say, all the bands that you've said you recorded and played with and stuff, I can hear that all in your music. And I was gonna bring that up because I wrote down all these different bands, and you've said almost all of them. The only one was the Doors. I don't know if you ever were kind of like them, or
No, I watched them.
Okay.
We used to play at a place in London in the 60s called the Roundhouse.
Okay.
And the Roundhouse was in a place called Chalk Farm in North London. And it would open on a Sunday only. And it would open up at 11 o'clock in the morning. and it would go right the way through to 11 o'clock at night. And they had all the bands, a lot of American bands there.
Okay.
The Byrds, the Doors, for instance, came in and played there. And we used to go, because it was, you could go through the door, you could take off your clothes if you wanted to, you could run around with a joystick, or you could do anything like that, and nobody would care.
Yeah.
And it was one of those kind of places. So I watched the Doors. A great fan of the writing of Jim Morris. I thought he was an amazing writer.
Yeah.
And amazing keyboard player as well. I mean, I thought he was absolutely, at the time, although not too many people, I think, appreciated how good he was. He did a lot of the bass parts with his feet, and he would play the keyboard as well as doing the bass sections with his feet. He was a very talented guy. Is he still alive, or is he gone?
I think he's gone. I think it was a couple of years ago.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
Zelensky, what was his name? Zelensky? No, I can't think.
I believe so, because I seen an interview with him. I think this was 2018, so somewhere around there. And as soon as he did that, I heard something happened afterwards.
Oh, it's a shame, because they were great. There was some lovely keyboard stuff on.
He was really, because he's like, we didn't have a bass player, so I didn't know that. So he played both parts at the same time. They didn't really even have a guitar player for a lot of songs. I was like, the drummer and a singer and a keyboardist. I was like, how do you do that?
Well, I think the emptiness of their records was the key to their success, to be honest with you. It wasn't filled up with a dozen acoustics being played, and 14 lead guitarists playing away.
It wasn't even on time, a lot of stuff.
No.
There was a space, and you'd hear like him shout. You know what I mean? And then it goes into something.
Oi!
Yeah.
Change now. No, they were great. The songwriting was so good. I mean, Light My Fire must be one of the classics of all time as a song.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, really.
It's very catchy.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we saw them at the Roundhouse, and amongst others, and it was the best place to see them, because it just fitted in with the moment where we were, where we were really.
It's funny because a lot of people say, like, when they're writing the hit songs, the ones that we all know now, they weren't even thinking about that. Some of them, they're like, well, that was going to be the last song on the record, or wasn't even going to make it.
Exactly.
Because I remember him saying something about that, and he's like, "Riders on the Storm," and he's like, "This is terrible." I was like,
oh, really?
Some old interview, and I was like, he goes, "You just never know," or something. He's sitting back. Well, you just never know.
Well, that's my point about the creativity of places like Abbey Road, where you were allowed as a band to, to find your way through the song, really, and to make it work.
Yeah.
Which you don't get, like you rightly say, you get a few hours to. I think what you do these days is you rehearse it till it's kind of dead, really, and then you go in and record it.
Yeah. You make sure everything's all together.
Yeah, you squeeze the life out of it, I think, and then you go and record it, which is where we never did that. I mean, and I think that's like you rightly say, that's the difference between then and now. But then was a very different time. There was no mobile phones. There was no computers.
Oh yeah.
If you wanted to call your girlfriend, you had to stand in the freezing cold by a phone box and wait for this guy to come out who'd been on his phone.
The Superman telephone booth.
Well, that's it. It was like that. But in a way, you valued those. For me, and I know I'm much older and I've been through all that, but I mean, it's just that you kind of valued it more because you had to really try. For instance, when you were playing live on stage, there was nothing to support you. There was just really crummy PA and maybe a couple
the
of
sound systems weren't that great back then.
No,
I can say that. They might have been huge. You're like, well, they were huge, but they didn't really sound
No,
good.
They didn't sound that great.
Yeah.
So you had, and there were no lasers or anything like that, and no video screen.
There was smoke though. There's fog and real smoke.
Yeah, you had a what was it? What was that thing we used to use? A strobe light.
Yeah. Yep.
You ever seen the strobe light? Yeah. So we had that, but that was it. So you had to play. You just had to play to get the audience to like it and to get off on it, you had to actually deliver something from the stage.
Yeah.
You couldn't rely on all these cameras and stuff and lights and lasers flicking on and off, That's the
Yeah.
difference.
And you have to feel like you're polished. You got to feel like you're on your game every time. There's, like you're saying, there's no spot of just kind of having fun and exploring and doing kind of your own thing, And I think and even the bands, like I listen to, I don't know if you know a lot of these, but like Creed and Godsmack, like some of the '90s hard rock kind of bands. Their first records were very raw, and then they get really polished, and the numbers go down. Not that it's not bad, it's not bad or anything. It's just we like that. Wow, this sounds real. This sounds
Yeah, I
raw.
think you
This sounds
lose that kind of core of it, I think.
yeah.
And you
Yep.
can understand why it does get polished, because somebody says, your manager says, well, guys, it's got to, for you, and the record
You
company
gotta.
want to polish. So, so
Yep.
you kind of lost that control that you had over it, really.
Yeah. So we got a few minutes here. I want to thank everybody for
Okay.
tuning in here on the audio side and on the video side. Hello, we're on YouTube and all the other platforms going on. We will be by the time you see this. I appreciate you having on here. I love these old stories and stuff like to me, because I was that was way before my time. But I'm very old school, and I don't text all the time and that kind of stuff. I know technology, but I wish I could have grown up. I don't even in the '80s or something like that, and I feel like I would have been way farther than I am now, or just got along with everybody better.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right.
But
I'm
this,
sure you're right that the cap has kind of been put on your head. This is the
yeah,
cap you've got to wear. But I mean, sometime along the line, as you get a bit older, you can take that cap off and throw it in the bin and put your own cap on. I think that will happen, like you say. I think there's a
yeah,
moment that this will change.
yeah. I know what you're talking about. Everyone out there, don't get discouraged either. I know we play a
No,
lot of
don't get
we play a
keep
lot of
going.
indie
Look,
artists, and I mean we'll play you guys all the time, and keep. It's important though for you guys out there to know you have to keep pushing. Sometimes you got to remind all of us to do things, because there's a lot of things going on. That's
no,
one of the
I
main
think
things.
it's a shame that it's more difficult for you. It was not that the finding the songs is never easy, but once we've found the songs, we could then easily share them with somebody else. These days, it's not
Yeah,
so easy.
yeah,
So, but out of that, all I can say is that out of that will become the harder it is initially, the more worthwhile. Once it does break, the more worthwhile it is anyway, because you put that effort into it.
yep. You get
And
that
I do,
payoff.
all those young guys out there who are sitting there with their chords, don't be frightened. Do whatever comes into your head, put it down. We always found that the first cut or the first take of something lyrically, and also in terms of a lyric line, was always the best. So we would
Okay.
always record, even if it was just on a little tiny recorder, we would just get that idea down. You could
Yeah.
change the lyrics and everything later on, but sometimes that first pass is the best.
Yes,
So
I know
keep
you're
that in
talking
mind,
about.
guys.
Yep.
First pass is the best.
Yep.
From Jon Povey.
There you go. Before we go, one thing I wanted to ask you is keyboard wise, what are you using for models and stuff as of right now? We have about 4 minutes.
What you mean as players?
Yeah, as players. What do you play right now?
I have to say, I was never really one of those players who was a kind of virtuoso player.
Okay.
I would love to listen to some of the keyboard stuff that George Martin played on the Beatles recordings. And I was really more of an arranger keyboard player
Okay.
than a kind of guy who wants to play like a fantastic keyboard solo somewhere. So although I listened to Green Onions when we sort of cut our teeth on the old Green Onions record, which was an amazing sounding organ Hammond, but
Yeah.
we never used the Hammond really that much on stage. We would use earlier on, we used some old sort of Vox Continental thing which screeched and made terrible noises, but we liked it.
Yeah, yeah, fit it. Well, I was gonna say your music has more of a, even though it's in that era, it has early hard rock roots. Like I'm hearing certain phrases and stuff in there that remind me like Judas Priest or something a little bit that they would do in that realm of like the miners and stuff. And I was like, that's neat because I never heard that in Led Zeppelin, but I did hear that in a lot of your live stuff in the '70s when there's some of the videos I watched.
Yeah, yeah. It was blues originally. I mean, like all the white bands out of the UK were blues. The ones who
Yeah,
wanted to be was blues orientated.
yeah,
And Dick Taylor was a great blues advocate, along with. I mean, they all went to school together anyway. Keith Richards, and Dick, and Jagger. They all went to the same school. But David Bowie was 2 years earlier, but he always went to the same school as well. So there was a lot of sharing went on. There was no egos really left at
yeah,
all egos were left at the door,
yeah,
and there was a kind of collective love of blues music. But then, you know, I was trained as a classical pianist, so we would we would kind of add those bits
yeah.
into the blues really, and that's how it really came about really.
You gotta
You
do
know,
your own thing out there. Well, I
do it.
appreciate so much for you being on this show here.
No,
It's
thanks,
always
Frank, for the
awesome.
opportunity.
I wish we
I
had more
really
time. Zoom does this 40-minute thing now, so I'm like, they're gonna cut me right
Well,
off.
any other time you want to chat, anytime you want to chat about anything, you can always do it with me. I've got no problem at all. As long as I'm still breathing,
All
it's
right,
cool.
all right. We'll do a follow up here with some stuff. All right. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Frank.
it. Everybody out there, only here on Radio Wigwam, we are streaming, and make sure you see this on YouTube, all the other platforms. We're live Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time and 8 p.m. UK time. Not sure in Spain what time that is, if it's similar or not. But
An hour on, 1 hour further.
okay. But when you're in the UK, I was gonna say there's a lot of bands in the UK. They start with the word "the" at that point. I don't know if that's was just a popular thing to do, but there's a lot of thes out there. So I want to see some new the bands.
There you go. You got it. And Wigwam is a very cool show. And thanks very much for putting me on.
Anytime, man. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys, so much. I will talk to you all soon.
God bless.
See you later.